welcome back to Cosmic Life Astrology. Today we're talking about Uranus finally entering the sign of Gemini on July 7th. We're going to see Uranus in Gemini until May of 2033. So we have almost 8 full years of Uranus in a fellow air sign. Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius, and so it going into an air sign, it feels much more comfortable and at ease in Gemini. And when we look at Gemini, Gemini is a mutable air sign. So mutable signs do change with ease. Gemini is ruled by Mercury, which is all about the mind and the intellect and communication and information and transportation. So we can expect Uranus to change things up in those realms of life while it's in Gemini. We also have to look at Uranus being the higher octave of the mind. And with that, I think that Uranus is going to bring some revolution to how we understand neurological issues or medicines related to neurological issues. I think there can be some great progress made in that realm. I also think that this is going to allow people to tap into their higher mind, into their conscious. And, you know, I think the collective is going to be much more aware of their consciousness. When we're talking about Uranus in a very thought focused sign of Gemini. You know, Gemini isn't just about your thoughts, it's about what you tell yourself, what you speak of, how you communicate with people, how you study things, how you understand things. I think that there's going to be some changes in how we socialize with others. And this could mean that our social platforms are changing, whether that be that we're not using them as much in the next 8 years, or we're veering away from them and focusing more on direct connections with people. That's something I personally would like to see. I think we utilize social platforms a little too much and forgot how to connect with each other. And I do feel like that's very much needed across the board. And I feel like Pluto is going to help facilitate that, because Pluto is in Uranus's home sign. Pluto is transforming the collective in Aquarius. And with Uranus making a trine to Pluto, it's going to help bring those changes within the collective. And Pluto is going to be receptive to Uranus. So, you know, Uranus is going to call the shots, and Pluto is going to say, okay, this is how we're going to transform things. We also will have a sextile to Saturn and Neptune and Aries for quite some time. So there's a lot of positive connections that are going to help us make things happen, make the changes that are needed, not just collectively, but individually. When we're talking about Saturn being in Aries and Neptune being in Aries, which is about the individual. Saturn and Neptune in Aries, you know, is helping us create something new. You know, Neptune is helping us with that creative energy, and Saturn is helping us put in the work to make things happen and to create something real and tangible in our life. So with Uranus having these positive connections, it is very much supported and is going to be able to bring change with more ease. I do think that besides how we communicate, there's, you know, very likely going to be changes in how we travel, both locally and long distance, because Gemini is about your short distance travel, your day-to-day travel. So there could be a lot of changes in how cars are manufactured, or how they're even built, or, you know, what they're fueled by, as well as how we travel long distance. There could be a lot of changes in aircraft. or even with trains. You know, maybe we're going to utilize trains more. But I do think that we're going to see a lot of changes with aircraft for sure when we're talking about Pluto in Aquarius. And we've seen some issues happening with airplanes suddenly, unfortunately, crashing, you know, over the past few months. And so I think that's going to be the red flag for the airline industries to really ramp up and innovate the aircraft. I do think that as far as technology, there's going to be big changes with how we're using technology, different softwares and apps. I think, you know, we are going to see more changes with AI as well. We have to be mindful of this, and I hope that Uranus, being the higher octave of the mind, and it making that trine to Pluto and Aquarius, you know, which is going to help transform the collective consciousness. I think we all are going to be more conscious of how much we're depending on software and the internet and social platforms and technology. I think that's going to be an element that's part of this transit. I feel like through my observation, I have seen a lot of people feel a little fed up with how people don't interact face to face as much as they used to. You know, there's too many people that are, you know, distracted by technology, even when they're amongst friends and family. You know, we have things at our fingertips. We have these phones that easily, you know, can distract us with all the things that phones are capable of giving us, whether it be, you know, watching TV on the phone, being on social media, interacting on different, you know, social platforms like Discord and WhatsApp and all those things, you know, where people have forgotten to be present. And my hope for society is that people learn to become more present. And I feel like, I just really feel like that's going to be a part of it. I think that trine to Pluto is really going to turn a switch with our society where, you know, it's like suddenly people become more and more aware and they start to step away from that distractibility. And that will help with us being able to tap into our higher mind, because when you're distracted and you're surrounded by all of these different technologies, your mind is clouded and, you know, you're not fully aware of your surroundings. You're not fully present with the people you're surrounding yourself with. And, you know, I know some people may think I'm crazy for saying this, but I think a lot of people will agree that we do use technology a little too much. It can be rather unhealthy. And maybe that's part of what the discoveries will be with the neurological discoveries that I mentioned, is how it affects our brain and our mindset and our intellect and our intuition. But I digress. I do think there is a possibility for the way that we're learning to be changing. And when I say learning, I think there will be more of a focus on education, on the levels of schooling before college. College would be, you know, Jupiter ruled, you know, higher learning. And everything before that is more Mercury ruled, which is Gemini. So I think the way that our children are being taught, or how they're learning, what they're learning, what is being presented to them in school for their education may change. And I think it will be for the better with those positive connections to the other slower moving planets. And I think we will have a lot of innovation available to us. Uranus is very inventive. Uranus is a energy that likes to think outside the box and do things differently. Break the status quo. And charter your own path. That's a Uranus, energy. So I do think we're going to have a lot of positive momentum while Uranus is in Gemini, and we won't see any negative aspects happening until towards the very end of Uranus's transit in Gemini, when Saturn starts moving into Gemini and eventually conjuncts Uranus. But we don't have to worry about that until about 2032. And so we will talk about that then. For now, we do have a lot of positive energy with Uranus and Taurus, and Uranus and Gemini. I do think it's very symbolic that as Uranus was exiting Taurus at the 29th degree, Uranus and Venus, the ruler of Taurus, came together in a conjunction at that 29th degree. And Venus was, helping Uranus wrap up its long journey in Taurus, and is also welcoming Uranus into Gemini. And I think, Venus being close to Uranus in, the next week or two is going to help Uranus really get its foot on the ground in Gemini, because it is a big shift in energy. Gemini is very lighthearted. And I also think that on a worldly scale, when we talk about Uranus and Gemini, Gemini is a sign of the twins. So I think when it comes to politics, or, just worldly topics, I think there will be more of an ease and understanding between two opposing maybe belief systems, or political systems, or when it comes to foreign trade, and when it comes to foreign policies, I think there will be more of an understanding and an ability to find common ground and a fair, middle ground for all parties involved. And Uranus is going to require people to take a different approach to get to that middle ground. But it is possible. That is the benefit of Gemini. Gemini seeds can understand both sides of the coin, can understand two different perspectives, and is able to find a middle ground that works for everyone. And so I think, that is very positive, that all of us would like to see, because nobody wants to see, countries fighting and at war with each other. Nobody wants to see, all this political conflict. We need to, all work together peacefully amongst the whole globe. And so I think this will be another supportive part of the Uranus and Gemini transit, is people being able to come together a little more peacefully and with more understanding of each other. And we can all be different, Uranus, but we can appreciate the differences between each other. And that is what I'm going to say in a nutshell. We have plenty of time to keep talking about Uranus and Gemini. For those of you that are fire and air, sun, moon, or rising, you guys are going to have even more of an ease of flow during this transit, and therefore the changes will be, they could be very quick for the fire and air signs, and you may see developments happen maybe out of the blue, or even just unexpectedly, shifting things in a new direction. For the earth signs and water signs, it may not be, it's not a terrible thing for you guys, depending on your sign, but it will be maybe a little more uncomfortable for you guys, just because, you know, depending on your sign, it could be quincunxing or squaring, and those are a little more challenging connections. So overall, we all have a lot of things to look forward to with Uranus being out of Taurus and in the sign of Gemini, and thankfully we all have some kind of fire and air placements, so chances are there is opportunity for everyone to benefit from this Uranus transit for the next almost 8 full years. And I'm very much looking forward to it for all of us, individually and collectively. I think this is going to be a really good transit, and we will be talking about it more and more as time goes by. Stay tuned for the next video, which I'll be talking about the Capricorn full moon happening in a couple of days. And in the meantime, I hope you all have a great week. Take care, everyone.